Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is Life Edge because life, well, it just shouldn't be mediocre. I'm Rick Zanotti, and I'm joined today by my good friend and co-host, Dr. Susan Nash. How are you, Susan?
I'm good. I don't think anybody can see me, but I'm in a different shot. But here you hear the disembodied voice.
Wait a minute. How did you wind up out of that shot? I tell you, these things don't communicate anymore. There we go.
There she is.
That's the correct shot. You know, that's what happens in a live show. Sometimes the fingers fumble. Anyway, um,
Well, it's great to be here.
it is. It's good to be here, and it's good to be back. I felt embarrassed today. I went back and kind of glanced over our episode 30. Episode 30
Yeah.
of Life Edge. That was 8 years ago. And I go, Van, the minute I saw your face and I heard you, I go, oh gosh. And then I thought the last closing message was, we have to get you back on soon. 8 years is not soon. Um, we were very remiss. I mean, in many ways, we were remiss. But I'm so glad she thought of you the other day. And I went, great, sure. Sounds good. And then I remembered today who you really were. I remembered your name. I was going, why do I know that name? I know that name. We've had so many thousands of guests every so often, and my name memory is bad. But I go, I remember the name. And today I looked and I went, oh gosh. So it's a pleasure to have Dr. Van Hartmann back with us. He recently retired, but he's a poet. He's writing books, and he's got an interesting life, past and probably present, coming up. So why don't we start the show and we can talk in a minute. Here we go.
I'm so excited. This is going to be great.
This show is sponsored by Talking Vids, corporate video, e-learning, enterprise-wide development, online interviews, multimedia development, and more. Visit us at www.talkingvids.com. And here we go. We are back, and in that center position of power, we've got Dr. Van Hartmann. How are you doing, Van?
Well, I'm doing great, and I actually am doing even better because I'm able to see Susan and you, Rick. And I just want to give a shout out, if you will, to Susan for keeping going one of the hardest things in the world, which is a small press, small publishing company that has been kind enough to feature three of my books of poetry, and the most recent one that just came out. And I just think what Susan's doing is wonderful.
Oh,
And I
thank
first
you.
met
Well,
Susan. No, I
yeah, we
first met
first met
Susan when
years
we were
ago.
both working
Yeah.
for an online university program for a master's degree program, and Susan was the I don't know what the title was, but director or dean or something for us, and
Yes,
kept
Associate
us all in
Dean.
line and kept us working, focused, and helping other people develop their lives. So yeah, so
Oh,
yeah,
it's such a pleasure. And I was thinking back to those days. That was in Albany, New York, and you were in
yes.
still in Manhattanville, New York. But what's so nice about that, the program was to help people finish up their masters, and it was in in liberal arts, or basically liberal studies. So it was so much there was so much flexibility and freedom in what they could choose. And so I really enjoyed working with you, Van, because you always were so encouraging to the people working, like on the faculty and the staff, like position and administration, but also to the students, and then just also to the philosophical and intellectual inquiry process.
Well, it's really, it was a fascinating group of people. I had everybody as students, from ranging from soldiers at that time based at outposts in Afghanistan, where they had to hike maybe 2 hours to get to a computer, and they were doing this course, to nurses posted in little remote areas in, northern New Hampshire or something like that, where again, the only access they had to being able to develop their their talent, their knowledge was through this online setup, and it was still fairly new. The whole idea of online learning back then, and it was for me an eye opener to what education could be and what. And I still have there's a student I from that time named Jessica Polden,
Oh,
who
wow.
I'm still a Facebook friend with. Is that amazing? She went all the way.
Oh,
She went Southeast Asia somewhere and came back, and then or
oh.
South Asia and back, and yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was a good time.
Now you
Well,
just
thank you
finished.
for the words.
Whoops.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go
I
finish.
was just going to say thank you for the words about the press and the poetry, and I can't wait to hear about the new books, or new book. But go ahead, Rick.
No, I was just going to say, let's put up the new book on screen so everybody can see what the new book is on Amazon.
We'll move it
See if I
over a
can get
bit.
this.
There
I'm
we
getting
go.
used to the.
Yeah, and then we have a screenshot too.
There you
That's
go.
the Amazon
And
screenshot.
yeah,
There we go.
yeah,
And also, if you're watching the show, at the bottom when we have the show description, you'll see a link to Amazon to get the book.
yeah, great. Well, um,
Tell us
it
about
was.
it.
Yeah, it was a. My last book was, I think, 2016. So while I've been, sending out poems and things, I've really accumulated not only a lot of poems but a lot of life experience, as well as the lingering reality of previous life experiences. So this book really, it kind of focuses on. This is not going to really help sell it, but it kind of focuses on mortality, the confrontation with it in oneself, with two cancer diagnoses, and fortunately, wonderful health care that's put that all more or less behind me, although it's never behind me. But also with COVID, a number of losses that we've all experienced, and through that, and Rick and I, before we came on, were talking about the importance of being outdoors in nature, the extent to which being outdoors in nature can provide, obviously, doesn't solve those issues, but it provides some inner spiritual, if you want to use that word, comfort in the midst of all of that. So the book opens with some poems about my own, dealing with diagnosis and thinking about that. Moves through the loss of a number of family and friends, friends, and other people that have been part of my life, and the way in which one comes to terms with that, and then moves, I hope, if it has a shape, which I hope it does, toward in the last section, a kind of an affirmation through various encounters with elements in the natural world, especially birds. For some reason, birds in flight, the just wonderfulness of that freedom somehow speaks to me.
That's great. I remember when you came on last time, 8 years ago, you spoke a lot about empathy and how we don't want to lose that empathy. The more people read, the more people look at things, the more people just, kind of tear away from things like social media and stuff. They develop more empathy. And it's funny, when I was watching that, kind of rewatched part of the show today for this interview, and I thought, it's funny because we thought the same thing when we were writing training. For example, we did training for the County of Los Angeles, of which we trained about 110,000 people with this, and the program was called SMILE. Service means involvement, listening, and empathy. All about empathy. If you can't put yourself in someone's place, how can you feel anything? And it's a problem we're having I think generationally and just globally right now, there's not a lot of empathy going on. War, kill, kill. That's not really a good way to, look at life. It's just going to get rid of us more easily. But empathy is so important because it seems to be kind of and that's only if you watch a media. If you watch a media, there's no empathy. It's just BS. It's just a lot of BS. But when you start talking, but there are a lot of people who believe in what you said, and I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah. Well, I've taught poetry over the years at the college level, and conducted workshops as well outside, and the act of writing a poem, I suppose you can just turn inward and merely, not merely, there's nothing wrong with this, but just give expression to your own, hurt, trauma, whatever. Sure. But the real thing that I think is wonderful when I see students both writing poetry and reading other poetry is when they're able to see connections, take something in themselves and then look outward and see the connection with something outside and develop that empathetic understanding. There's a book, I don't recall the name of the author, which is terrible, but it came out years ago. I think it's called The Last Boy in the Woods or The Last Kid in the Woods. And it also talks about again, something we were talking about earlier, the importance of being in the woods, in nature, in the outside world, as opposed to what so many people now are doing, is focused on screens and little devices. And the loss of empathy when you lose that contact with nature, and the value, the importance of that to sustaining empathy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Throughout the years, we've had a lot of rescue dogs. And when you have rescue dogs, they usually have a lot of problems, or some problems, some more than others. But on the whole, they come damaged. And our job, the way we look at it, is we love them back to health. They get good food, they get loved. And we have one right now, he's a collie, and he came pretty damaged. If you moved your hand too quickly, he'd go running. He was afraid of, and from what we had heard, he had gotten beaten and leash whipped, and it's like, hey. And he just looked terrible. He didn't look healthy. Well, we've had him now going on 3 years, and it's another dog. It's a totally different dog, and you have to have empathy for him. You have to understand what they're feeling in their own way, because they're afraid. Every time we leave the house and he stays home, he's just like, oh, this isn't good. And put yourself in a dog's place, or a cat. A cat, not that much, but dogs, they rely on the pack. And when the pack takes off to go to work, they're like, oh, something bad, anxiety. Who's feeding me next? They're not hunters anymore. But having the empathy, it's such a joyful. They heal us as much as we heal them, in so many ways. And that's kind of what I think your poetry does too. It's when you were talking about the loss of your first wife and then your father, and I'm sitting there with a tear in my eyes, going, yeah, I know how that feels, and it brings you back to yesterday, and yet takes you back to today and tomorrow. We're all going to go through it, and so as you go through it, I thought you had a wonderful way to kind of self-heal yourself with that. Because to me, it seemed like it was a healing writing, and it was great. It was great looking at that and seeing what you wrote and how you felt. So yeah, that's to me, that's living empathy on that one.
Yeah, well, you're sort of preaching to the choir here, because we have a 13-year-old Labrador Retriever. Who is unable to get up and down stairs without my lifting, and pushing and helping, and this is going to sound really strange to people, but we finally resorted to a dog diaper.
Oh, we've done those.
because
We've used them many times. We've had many
he
females
struggled
and
with
males. Uh-oh.
control. And so, but again, your heart just goes out to that animal, that creature that
Hmm.
is struggling to stay in the game, if you will.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and as long as that dog can get some sort of pleasure and joy in life, which he does, he still brings the frisbee to me
Ah,
5 times a day and demands that I
wow.
take him out. So he can't get up and down the stairs,
Yep.
Aw,
and he chases the frisbee. So as long as he can do that, keep him going.
That's
But
right. That's
that's
right.
so cute.
yeah,
Well, I
poetry,
have a
poetry.
thought.
Go ahead. Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh no, sorry about that. Like, okay, so you're talking about poetry and developing empathy, and I've just noticed, after studying lots of poetry for many, many years, that it seems to me that there are two times when people write poetry. There are all the young dead poets who are super intense and the romantic, or super hyper intellectual and just write lots and lots. It's like, I mean, it's like overload of, and it's almost like a puppy, like the puppy of overload. Like,
Hmm.
okay, stop chewing. That, please don't don't chew on my chair. And then the and so there's that extreme all or nothing things, and then the poetry of people who are writing later in life, like Walt Whitman, reflecting
Oh, yeah.
back. And just like and you're talking about compassion and empathy, I think of Walt Whitman. And oh, I mean, did you know that he was the one who w- championed the whole prison ship martyrs monument at Fort Greene in Brooklyn? That
I think
he was
so. Yeah.
he Yeah, that bones of people who had been kept in that as prisoners of war during the Revolutionary
Hmm.
War in the old Hulk. There are Americans who've been kept prisoner of war by the British. They died,
Hmm.
or they were in shallow graves, and during a flood, their bones started just coming out of out of the cut banks. And he he had so much compassion, especially after his experiences in the Civil War, that he
Yeah.
fought to have them.
He went off and became a
Anyway,
nurse during the war, and
that's right.
and cared for the most damaged of soldiers. So yes, yes. Well, I would hope that when we write poetry, that it takes us beyond that desire just to shout out ourselves, which is perfectly. I mean, I want some of my students to have a little bit more confidence in shouting out who they are. But I would also hope that it takes us uh, enough outside of ourselves to connect empathetically with other people's life experiences. Or maybe I should put it this way, that I'm hoping that my own life experience um, has enough universality to it, even in its particularity, that that it somehow gives voice to something that other people may feel as well, and that in reading what I write, maybe there'll be some kind of a mirror that'll enable them to, manage, find their way through their own trauma or their own, aging or their own loss, all those things.
I think your books touch a chord, and it's a chord that many people are going to feel or have felt or are in the process of feeling, and that won't go away. So that's good. Yeah, it is kind of like a living legacy right now. So that's actually really good. Now, I was looking at your bio the other day, and I didn't
Uh-oh.
realize that when you were teaching, you were also teaching classes in film, the
Yes.
classics, the movie classics. And
Hmm.
and I was thinking, what is it that really makes us love the classics? Now, not everybody loves the classics, but what makes us really go in tune with that? There's no major special effects. There's no zapping and popping and blowing up, and they tend to be a lot simpler in that respect. A little bit better storylines in many cases. Um, I mean, there are movies
Mhm.
to this day I still watch that I can watch many times. One of my favorite ones is The Razor's Edge. I just like that movie.
Mhm.
I think Somerset Maugham wrote that movie, and it was just really interesting. Um, and again, there's something there that can trigger something in someone. Um,
Yeah.
Other one, Lost Horizon. That's one of my favorites. But and tons of other ones. I used to love the adventure films, the Errol Flynn films. They were
Mhm.
fun, and yet there were
Yeah.
messages in that, good and bad, but there were
Sure.
messages.
Sure.
And I don't know how much people are learning about the classics anymore or watch them. There's still some movie channels, I guess, that do classics, but
Yeah.
it's almost like a dying thing. And it's like, thank God they've been remastered and they've been put up on videos. They're up on downloads, which is good. At least people have access to them, and maybe they'll get interested. What was your take on that when you were teaching?
Well, I certainly needed to work to overcome, as you suggested, a cultural, generational, preference for a faster pace, a more spectacular set of special effects,
Hmm.
a more stylized, if you will, and exaggerated idea about I don't know, heroes, action heroes, all of that, which most of my more recent students have grown up on, uh, and I mean, one of the things that I think uh, you need to get people to, younger generations that might not have experienced, a movie like It Happened One Night, or
Hmm.
even the silent comedies that I've taught, like whether it's Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton or things like that, is to adjust to a different kind of pacing, adjust to a slower uh, and to some extent more in depth because of its slower pace. Look into human personalities, human psyches, human relationships. Uh, the and again, I have not seen the Barbie movie. I admit, but I do want to see it. I think it's probably wonderful from everything I've said because I also am really drawn to satire, and while it's not directly satire, it does give you a kind of dual vision on this cultural icon that so many girls grew up with and were probably damaged by. But uh, but the 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 earlier movies, I think, just have a wonderful, gentle, slower look into the reality of human relationships. The reality. I mean, I've taught Lois Weber's The Blot. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's a silent film by a woman filmmaker who was one of the most prominent filmmakers before the advent of sound. And with the advent of sound, I don't want to get into one of my lectures here, but with the advent of sound, suddenly the movies industry became extremely corporate and very expensive, and with the result, um, the it also became highly patriarchal in terms of the control of it. But before that, there were directors like Lois Weber, Dorothy Arzner, others who were doing these slower paced, more gentle examinations into perhaps the reality of domestic life, the difficulties of relationships between men and women, and so anyway, that's one of the things I enjoy. It doesn't mean that I don't like. I mean, I saw the. I loved seeing Harrison Ford at 80, which I'm approaching myself, doing Indiana Jones one more time, and, I'm not putting down the more modern movies either. At any rate, I don't know if that's the answer to your question, but
I think that's a good one. Yeah,
I
yeah.
keep thinking when I think of the pre-code movies, the silent movies, I think of Louise Brooks and I
okay.
don't think I'm on my shot. I don't think I'm anyway. Yeah, I'm
No,
not showing
no.
up in the shot. Anyway, okay. Anyway, so not that it matters, but just the disembodied voice again. But I think that
I see you now.
yeah, not too much of me. But anyway, so the pre-code films are pretty intense and they're very archetypal and dramatic. And then I
Yeah,
think of Fritz Lang and just the
yeah.
early archetypal extreme attitudes about women and existence and industrialization and all that
Well,
technocracies.
one of the things in terms of film that has happened that is, to my mind, a real benefit is that starting in the '70s and moving up to the present day, Ava DuVernay, all kinds of women directors have been able to find their place within the industry, and not that it's yet equitable, but still, uh, one of the things that has happened over the last, say, 30 years has been the emergence of some pretty great women directors. And as I was saying before, there were some really great women directors at the beginning of film when it was easier for an individual person just with a camera to set up and make movies. Uh, and that all shifted over the course of the 30s as the studio system came into play
Hmm.
and uh, and women were pushed out. So,
Killers of the Flower Moon are coming out
oh, I want to see that.
20th.
I love the book. Yeah,
Yeah, the book is very intense.
book is pretty impressive. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Again, well, I mean, here I have so many things I'm trying to write about. I have in my back of my head a project that I've been kind of accumulating material about, and that I have one poem in my current collection that references, and that's my grandparents on my mother's side immigrated to or moved from the east to Montana right at the beginning of the 20th century, and they had a ranch and they grew wheat and they raised cattle and they did all these wonderful things that we think of as the hardy pioneers that represent American stock. Well, the only problem was that all that land that they were farming had been Native American land, with especially Crow Indians had no deeds, obviously, but had lived on it, and their homestead in Montana came at the expense of another culture completely. And so that's one of the projects I want to do is at some point, in whatever time I have left, is go back and I would never expect to be able to do anything as good as the Killers of the Flower Moon, but I would love to be able to try to explore the intersection of those two cultures. One, a Dutch immigrant culture trying to find its place in America, and the other, a Native American culture that is in the process of being pushed aside. So that's one of the we carry around many projects in our heads
Yeah.
that we would like to complete at some point.
Well, Van,
That sounds
it,
amazing.
it, it does. And Van, it's been a real pleasure having you back on again today. We're kind of out of time, but
Rick,
we
I really
definitely
appreciate
want
it.
to have you back on and not wait another 8 years. I'd love to talk some
Well, let
more
me
with
know
you.
when.
And
I'll be happy to be
yeah,
happy to do it.
it'd be
Susan,
wonderful.
again, thanks to Susan for all of her support of the arts, and literature and writing and making all this possible as well.
It's
Oh,
great.
thank you.
So
It's great. And enjoy your retirement. I don't think you're going to retire that much. It sounds like you're going to be very busy writing and doing other things. So that's good. And enjoy those boat
so,
rides
okay,
out on the
thanks.
ocean. That's great. I know the view from Connecticut out to Long Island. It's pretty.
Oh, it's wonderful. On a clear day, you can see the line of Long Island right over there.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it is. It's really pretty. But anyway,
Yeah.
well, have a great one.
Okay.
We look
Thanks.
forward to really seeing you soon. And if you're ever up our way or Susan's way, we all look forward to seeing you in person. So, and likewise, if
Okay.
we go out that way again.
Please. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Please.
Have a great one. And if you're watching the show, please subscribe. Go check out the link for Van's books. I think you'll find them pretty interesting. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next week on Life Edge. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Play it.